Courage versus cowardice. They're two different types of feelings, two different types of states that lead to different outcomes for who you are going to become in your life. It is kind of downstream of an idea of fear versus faith, which is the thing that I've talked about a lot. Obviously, the cowardice is related to the fear, and the courage is related to the faith. But it's something distinctly different, right? Faith versus fear, it's like the internal person, like it's the internal feeling that is within you. And courage versus cowardice is the actual action that you do to a certain situation. So there was a very interesting saying that was like, cowardice is the cousin of fear. And it was something that kind of hit me a little bit, because it's like, yeah, like when you're fearful of something and you let those fears overcome you, and that causes you to not take the action that you need to do, it is cowardice. It is cowardice. You are being a coward. You're not being bold. And being courageous is the exact opposite, which is like, you're fearful, but you still go and take that risk. You do that thing that you need to do, right? Whatever the circumstance may be, whatever the fear may be, or whatever, for whatever reason, you push those fears aside, you have faith, and you take action. That is courage. So these two kind of concepts, it's more down to risk taking. That's the specific difference. It is the ability to take risks and the threshold for taking risks. So how big of a risk can you take towards something, whatever it may look like? You have very great courage if you can take big risks, right? If you take risks, sometimes even risking your life for something, or if it's risking your entire business, like if you have a business and you make a decision that risks the entire business, it is a courageous decision because it's something that could go horribly wrong. And if it does go horribly wrong, it's not going to be very good for you. But if it works out, it can go very, very well. And that's why the best businesses and the most successful people in the world, they took huge, huge risks. They had the courage to step in, to take the risk, and to make it happen. And the payoff was huge. And maybe some of them, they took the risks and they failed, and the risks actually backfired on them. But they found ways to improve and adapt and overcome it, to then take new risks, find new philosophies and strategies to make it happen, and then they make it happen. Whether in business or whether in any other successful place in the world, whatever thing you're dealing with, whatever thing you can think of as an example, it is really about risk taking. And when someone is very courageous, it means that maybe they did something that other people would not have been able to do. They have a level of fear that is not as high as other people. They didn't let the fear overcome them. Instead, they kind of logically looked at the situation and then took the action. Or maybe didn't even logically look at the situation. They just took the action regardless of kind of the outcomes. But what being a coward is, and no one really wants to be a coward. Like when someone calls you a coward, it's a pretty hard word. Like it's a pretty harsh word to kind of say, right? But it really is true. Like if you have fears about a certain situation and you fear something going wrong, so you don't take the risk, instead you sit back and instead you just kind of let things go as they will, you're kind of being a coward. You're being a coward, and that's kind of like what the definition of cowardice is. You're not taking that risk, and you're not doing that thing that maybe is a little bit more difficult, maybe is more a little bit outside of your comfort zone, makes you feel a little bit a certain way, and of course it's the fears and the awkwardness and whatever it comes with, and you just don't take that action. Like you just let all of those feelings and all that storm in your mind take over, and then it causes you to fail to take action, which then it cuts you off from your competition. The competition that you have that are courageous, that are risk takers, that are go-getters, they're going and they're making it happen in whatever field that you're in. But if you're just kind of stagnating, it really is a version of cowardice. It is a version of you are being a coward because first of all, the reality is all of your fears are in your own mind. They're all made up. They're not going to happen. It's all just your own internal limitations. The only limitation you set is in your own mind. But being a coward means that you're just not going to move forward in any way, because you're not going to take that risk because you're too worried about the loss. You're too worried about the potential for loss in whatever circumstance than the potential gain. So you think, okay, well, if I take this risk and it doesn't work out, see, just right there, right? That's negative, like just the negative mindset of it. If I take this risk and it doesn't work out, I'm going to be bankrupt, or things are going to go terribly wrong, or whatever. Like the business is going to collapse. Whatever that thing may be, right? I could give like a soccer example, right? It's like if you take the risk and make that bold pass and it goes wrong, you lose the ball and they can go and score on you. Or the reverse, which is the courageous thing, if the pass goes right, you then put your teammate in the position to score a goal, right? Or like if the risk pays off, your business will pay its dividends, and you will actually make a lot of money, right? So that is like the mindset behind it. It's like the positive versus negative kind of thoughts in your head, like the limiting thoughts versus the empowering thoughts. If you kind of and I think maybe one thing is, of course, you will always have fears. The things will be there no matter what. Like those kinds of doubts in your mind, that's fine. Like that's life. You're never going to just you shouldn't just be an idiot and act, because sometimes you might genuinely just do something stupid, right? Of course. You got to kind of walk that line. But you do also need to know that most of the time the fears are in your own head. And I think even if you kind of make a stupid decision and you fail, but at least the decision was courageous in its effort, then you can learn the lessons and then make adjustments and change, and then take a different risk and maybe more calculated risk, and then make something better happen, and bounce back from your failures. So yes, maybe you think about, oh, you don't want to make a stupid decision, but if that's the only thing that's in your head, you're going to be a coward. And when it comes to decision making, when it comes to leading, when it comes to just making something happen, anything happen in your life, right? So I given the soccer example, right, as it is, because football is the massive theme on the show, because that's literally like been my life, and that's like literally my life story. So of course, like throughout the show, if you're new here, many soccer, football related, sporting related examples, because it's a very easy way to kind of give that analogy for anything in life. It's literally courageous versus coward. Do you want to be the guy who's courageous, like the guy that people talk about, and they're like, dude, this guy, he is a beast, right? He is courageous. He makes it happen. He doesn't really care about any of the potential drawbacks. He just goes and then he adjusts from there. Versus being the guy that like everyone's like, yeah, he's a bit of a pussy, right? He doesn't really do stuff, like he doesn't really do stuff with full intentions, or he definitely feels like he hesitates in certain situations. That is when people call you that word, like, apologize for the swearing, but just to kind of drive my point home, like they're essentially calling you a coward. That's maybe a more like, that's of course more of like a slang word, more of just an insulting word, but they're basically calling you a coward, right? When you let the fear overcome you and you don't actually take that action. The major difference in between fear versus faith, which is a thing I've been talking about so much on this show in recent times, because that's what's making a lot of sense in my life. The main difference between that is that fear versus faith is the emotion. It is what you're thinking about, how you're feeling when you're actually going into the situation. Courage versus cowardice is the action that comes with it. So you can feel the fear, but you still take the action. That is courage. That is bravery. You're actually doing the thing regardless of how you feel. But you can feel the fear and then you don't take the action. So then the fear becomes cowardice. It becomes you acting on the fears and letting those impulses dictate what you do, your lack of action, or you're taking the safe route, taking the safe pathway, the safe action. And that's, of course, the cowardice action, right? But versus if you actually have internal faith within you, of course, if you have faith and you act on it, it isn't necessarily courage at the same time, because you didn't have to overcome those feelings. I think to other people it would still look like courage, it would still look like bravery, but if you actually have the full assurance of faith that it will work out and you still take that action, I think from an external perspective, people will look at you and say you are courageous, but internally it's not necessarily courage, because I think the courage is in the fact that that you have to overcome like the certain feelings of doubt and fear and all that stuff to then still make that decision and take that risk and take that action towards something better, and understanding the drawbacks if it goes wrong, but being okay with it. That is how I would describe courage, and that's why it is very distinctly different from the whole fear versus faith thing. Because of course, it is the actions that correspond with it. You can have fear and you can act on it, or you can fail to act on it. Technically, acting on your fears would be failing to take action anyway. So regardless, you can let your fears take you over, or you can overcome them, and that is the difference between the two things: being a courageous person or being a coward. So, and that's why when people pray to God, and that's why when people ask for certain virtues, courage is the thing that comes up, right? Like things like, strength and wisdom, knowledge, courage. Courage is a virtue that very often comes up. Not a lot of people actually fully, specifically know what it means to be courageous. But a lot of people know what it means to be a coward because they, like, the whole oh, you make a decision, it's the bad decision, you were a coward, you let fear overcome you, and then you're shamed at yourself, and then you shame yourself for your fear and your doubt and then your guilt, you know and then it's that spiral, and you spiral out of control. You need to calm down, you need to take a deep breath, right? If you're ever in that kind of like a spiral because you made a mistake and you were a coward in one circumstance. And as harsh of a word as being a coward is, it's okay, because if you're a logical person, if you use your mind, if you can think, you can understand, okay, I was a coward, I was fearful in this situation, it wasn't good. Let's try and do better. Instead of like that negative mindset spiraling out of control, then you're just going to be a coward for the rest of your life, if that's your mindset. But if you are in a situation where you make the wrong decision, where you are a coward, where you do the safe option instead of the bold option, and it doesn't work out, it leads to even worse things happening, then you can realize, you can tell yourself, okay, I'm a coward, it didn't work out, but that's okay. Right? Again, as harsh of a word as it is, you can still use it as a way to motivate yourself to do better. And if you have that self-improvement, that growth mindset, for every circumstance in your life, you should always be finding the thing that, okay, what was the mistake I made? How can I do better? Or what went well? How can I improve it in the future anyway? That's kind of your mindset if you're kind of living a life just for constant growth, which I think is probably the best way to live your life. But the reason why people ask for courage to God is because a lot of us don't actually have it. It doesn't come naturally, right? We have those fears within us, and those fears stop us from taking that action, right? It stops us. And there are probably more cowards in the world than there are courageous people in the world, and that is probably very, very true. But I think that's okay, and that's why people pray to God for it, because we realize that if we're so focused on the fears, we will be a coward, and we will make the decision that is not the right option. That is the safe option, the easy option. But if we pray to God and we ask Him for courage and He grants us the courage, then you will have that faith, and that faith to overcome the fear, to actually go and be a courageous person and do the thing and make that thing happen. So that's why that is talked about so much. That is why we pray to God for courage, because it is a very, very noble value. It is something that, like, it really does make the difference between someone who is successful and someone who's not. The ability to take risks, the ability to undergo stress, the ability to be courageous and be brave when it comes to situations, and being able to handle things with grace and with diplomacy. Like, those are kind of like the real core values when it comes to like how people actually get to success. And sometimes people have that like delusional level of confidence. I've talked about that as well on the show. It's like, it goes hand in hand with just having a huge level of courage versus, of course, the opposite side, which is what a lot of people are having that kind of fail in life, that kind of are living miserable lives, is because they're cowards, right? Like they don't actually take the actions that they know that they need to do. Usually it's not a case of not knowing what you need to do. It's knowing what you need to do, but not having the strength and the courage to actually go and make it happen. Just letting your fears and your own internal mind take you over, and your own internal limitations take you over. So you need to know that again, I've said this many times, and I'm beating the drum on this thing again, that the only limitations you have are in your own mind. The fears are largely, like 95 to 99% of your fears and your anxieties are not real. They're not actually going to happen. It is just in your mind. It's your mind's way of trying to get you to stay stuck. It's your mind's way to kind of conserve energy. And it's the devil's way of trying to get you to just constantly feel like a coward, constantly be in fear, constantly being shameful of yourself. But if you have faith, and if you can be a courageous person, the possibilities are truly endless. The possibilities are endless. So you got to continue to fight. Understand that sometimes you'll be a coward. And in my life, I've had many, many situations. That's why I talk about this. I've had many, many situations where I was a coward. I should have been bolder and maybe a little bit more confident and a little bit more courageous in certain situations when it comes to like a decision I made, or certain interactions with certain people, in like what I say to them. Like maybe I was a little bit too respectful, but it is like a version of cowardice. I look at myself and I fall into it. Like, I've let fears overcome me at times. I've been a coward way too many times in my life instead of being bold and brave, which I think I'm trying to improve on in my life. So that's why I talk about this, because it's something that's like, it happens. It's life, right? Sometimes you have a moment where you make it happen, then you don't make it happen. But the one thing is, you shouldn't fall into the trap of then you're shaming yourself because you made the mistake, you didn't make it happen. No, you need to have that mindset, and you're like, okay, what can I do to do better next time you're put in this type of situation, or you have this option to make a change, make a decision, take a risk. So for me, that's what I do. It's like, I know that I've been a coward in my life, and that's okay. Each and every one of you watching this video can probably look to a point in your life where you could have done better, where you let fear overcome you, where you can say that you were a coward. And I think you have to be completely raw and honest with yourself. Don't code it in kind of nicer words. Make it harsh so that you can realize, you can kind of get deeper in your mind and realize, okay, I was a coward here. What can I do so I'm not a coward in the future? And that's kind of the only way you can have that positive reinforcing growth mindset versus the, oh, I was a coward, oh, it's never going to work out, right? Oh, I'm never going to make it happen. And then the shame and the guilt and all that stuff, that will just make you spiral out of control. So get yourself back on track. If you're a coward, if you fall to fear, whatever, that's okay. Understand that that's life. It will happen. But understand that you have to have that growth mindset. You have to have that positive mindset, optimistic mindset, and get yourself back on track in whatever situation it is. Again, if it's in business, if it's in sports, if it's in literally anything that you can possibly think of, anything that you're dealing with right now in your life, that's the situation. That's how that works. You always have to have that growth mindset. It will happen. You'll not always every single time be able to be in the courageous position. Maybe you're just like tired that day and you just don't want to exert too much energy. Sometimes it's something that small, sometimes it's something bigger. You need to understand that it's okay. If you fall, that's fine. You get up and you keep moving forward into a better direction. Hopefully improving, hopefully overcoming those fears, and truly being courageous. So I hope I broke it down in a good way. I hope I broke down the difference between the two things, being courageous and being a coward. I hope I broke it down in as specific of a way as possible, that you understand the situation, that you can identify when you are one or the other in your life as well, so that you can use that to improve it in your life as well. But yes, that is all I gotta say. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Let me know what you're going to do, or maybe even let me know a situation that you went through and how you learned from it. At the end of the day, the ultimate message is that you can always learn and improve and literally like overcome those mistakes and yes, like have that courage, right? You'll turn cowardice into courage to do so many amazing things in this life, and it's truly possible. Again, the only possibilities are in your own mind. The only limitations are in your own mind. That is really, I think, the truth of the world and the truth of how it all works. So don't be fearful. Don't be fearful in anything that you do. And if you have those fears, truly go and overcome it. Take that action. Be courageous. Be bold. Be brave. Because that'll get you so much farther in life than being stuck exactly where you are. So thank you for watching this episode of the 365 Podcast. I ask that you like the video, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, show your support on the show in any way that you can. If you did enjoy this episode, if you enjoyed this breakdown of the difference between being a courageous person or being a cowardly person, let me know what you thought of it. Thank you for watching this episode of the 365 Podcast. That is all I got to say for today. I hope that this lesson really sits with you. Continue to glorify God every day throughout your life. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow for the next episode.